On the night of February 9, 2004, deep in the snow-covered White Mountains of New Hampshire, a bus driver named Butch Atwood was heading home. He rounded a sharp, hairpin turn on Route 112, a desolate, lonely road known for its unforgiving winter conditions. Up ahead, he saw the taillights of a car that had spun out and was jammed into a snowbank. He pulled over. A young woman was with the car. She wasn't visibly hurt, but she was shivering, clearly shaken. He asked if she wanted him to call the police. The woman said no, insisting she'd already called for help. But Atwood knew there was no cell service in this remote area. He could see she was in distress and knew she needed assistance. He drove the short distance to his home and called the police anyway. At 7:46 p.m., the first police officer, Sergeant Cecil Smith of the Haverhill Police Department, arrived at the scene. It had been less than 10 minutes since Butch Atwood had left the young woman. But when Sergeant Smith pulled up, there was no one there. The car, a black 1996 Saturn sedan, was empty. The windshield was cracked in a spiderweb pattern. Both front airbags had deployed. Inside, possessions were scattered. A packed backpack, college textbooks, CDs, and an open box of red wine on the back floor, a dark stain marking the carpet. Sergeant Smith looked around. The road was silent, flanked by a dense, dark forest. Fresh snow covered the ground. There were footprints from the officer who arrived before him and tire tracks from the bus, but there were no footprints leading away from the car. No tracks heading into the deep, unforgiving woods. In the space of just a few minutes, on a deserted road with only one witness, the driver of the car, 21-year-old Maura Murray, had vanished into thin air. Maura Murray was, by all accounts, a person full of promise. She was a gifted long-distance runner, a West Point cadet studying chemical engineering, and later, a nursing student at the University of Massachusetts Amherst. Photos show a young woman with a bright, magnetic smile. She was the fourth of 5 children in a close-knit Irish Catholic family from Hanson, Massachusetts. But a closer look revealed a life under pressure. In her first years at West Point, Maura was charged with shoplifting makeup. It was an out-of-character incident that led to her departure from the prestigious military academy. She transferred to UMass Amherst to study nursing, a path she excelled in. In November 2003, 3 months before her disappearance, another strange event occurred. Maura was charged with improper use of a credit card after using a number she found on a misplaced card to order food. The charge was to be dismissed after 3 months of good behavior. These were small but telling cracks in an otherwise perfect facade, signs of a young woman secretly struggling. The mystery of Maura's disappearance begins not at the crash site, but in the 48 hours that preceded it. On Thursday, February 5th, while working her night shift at a campus security desk, Maura took a personal phone call. Her supervisor found her moments later, completely catatonic, staring blankly. The supervisor walked her back to her dorm room, where Maura broke down in tears, repeatedly murmuring just 2 words: "My sister." The next day, Maura's father, Fred, arrived in Amherst to help her shop for a more reliable used car. They spent Friday together, and that evening, Maura borrowed his brand-new Toyota Corolla to go to a dorm party. In the early dark hours of Saturday morning, around 3:30 a.m., she was driving back to her father's motel when she crashed his new car on Route 9 in Hadley. The accident caused nearly $10,000 in damage. The responding officer didn't conduct a sobriety test, and she was given a ride to her father's motel. Later that Sunday, her father learned his auto insurance would cover the damage. He dropped Maura off at her dorm, planning to speak with her the next day to handle the paperwork. At around 11:30 p.m., they spoke on the phone. It was the last time he would ever speak to his daughter. The timeline of the following day, Monday, February 9th, is a cascade of baffling actions. 12:55 a.m. Maura uses her personal computer to search MapQuest for directions to the Berkshires in Burlington, Vermont. 1 p.m., she sends an email to her boyfriend, Billy Roush. "I love you more, stud. I got your messages, but honestly, I didn't feel like talking to much of anyone. I promised to call today, though. Love you, Maura. 1:24 p.m. She emails a work supervisor at the art gallery where she was employed, citing a death in the family as a reason she would be out of town for a week. Her family would later confirm there had been no death. 2:05 p.m. She calls a number that provides rental information for a condominium in Stowe, Vermont. 2:18 p.m. She calls Billy and leaves a brief, reassuring voicemail, promising to call later. It is the last time her voice would ever be recorded. Sometime that afternoon, she packs a black backpack with clothes, toiletries, makeup, and several of her nursing textbooks. She drives her own car, the black Saturn, to a nearby ATM and withdraws $280, almost all the money in her bank account. Then she drives to a liquor store and purchases Bailey's Irish Cream, Kahlua, vodka, and a box of Franzia red wine. She was seen on surveillance camera, alone, making the purchase. After that, she climbed back into her Saturn and drove north into the approaching New England darkness. Back at the crash site, the scene offered more questions than answers. Most peculiar of all was a discovery that continues to puzzle investigators and internet sleuths alike. A rag had been stuffed into the tailpipe of the Saturn. When questioned, Maura S.'s father explained that he had suggested she do this in the past as a trick to avoid visible exhaust smoke if she ever had car trouble, a piece of advice that now seemed tragically ironic. For 2 decades, investigators have struggled to answer one question. What happened in those crucial minutes on Route 112? Did Maura wander into the vast, dense woods and succumb to the harsh winter elements? Experts find this unlikely. The official search was extensive and found nothing. The dog tracks indicate she walked on the road, not into the forest. Was she met by a second car? This theory is the strongest. The abrupt end of the scent trail suggests she got into another vehicle. Was this a prearranged meeting with someone she knew, a ride to help her escape for a week? Or was it an opportunistic predator who saw a vulnerable young woman alone on a dark road? Another intriguing lead emerged years later. In 2019, 15 years after Maura vanished, a search was organized at a home not far from the crash site. The search was prompted by the owners of the property, who, after being contacted by a documentary series, had brought in cadaver dogs and a geophysicist. The dogs reportedly reacted to a spot in the home's closet, and ground-penetrating radar detected a disturbance in the soil in the basement. State police arrived with excavation equipment, but the search yielded nothing. The lab found no trace of blood, no link to Maura Murray. The case of Maura Murray remains a collection of contradictions. A young woman with plans for her future packs her textbooks, suggesting she intends to study. But she lies to her professors and withdraws all her money, suggesting a desire to escape. A car is found with signs of a serious accident, yet the driver had told the only witness she was fine. For 2 decades, the mystery has been kept alive by the unwavering efforts of Maura S. family and a relentless online community. Maura's sister, Julie, now runs the official family social media accounts, sharing memories of her sister and providing verified updates. Her father, Fred, never stopped searching until his death. But the silence from that February night remains. A young woman, caught between promise and pain, drove into the mountains and was swallowed by the dark. The hairpin turn on Route 112 has become a landmark of loss, a place where the world remembers that some stories don't have an end. They simply stop, leaving only the endless, haunting question: where is Maura?